The Centaur by May Swenson. The summer that I was 10. Can it be there was only one summer that I was 10? It must have been a long one then. Each day I go out to choose a fresh horse from my stable, which was a willow grove down by the old canal. I go on my 2 bare feet, but when with my brother's jackknife I had cut me a long limber horse, with a good thick knob for a head, and peeled him slick clean, except a few leaves for the tail, and cinched my brother's belt around the head for a rein. I'd straddle and canter him fast, up the grass bank to the path, trot along in the lovely dust that talcumed over his hoofs, hiding my toes and turning his feet to swift half moons, the willow knob with the strap jouncing between my thighs, was the pommel and yet the pole of my nickering pony's head. My head and my neck were mine, yet they were shaped like a horse. My hair flopped side to side like the mane of the horse in the wind. My forelock swung in my eyes, my neck arched. I snorted, I shielded and skittered and reared, stopped and raised my knees, pawed at the ground and quivered, my teeth bared as we wheeled, and swished through the dust again. I was the horse and the rider, and the leather I slapped to his rump, spanked my own behind, doubled my hooves, beat a gallop along the bank. The wind twanged in my mane, my mouth squared to the bit, and yet I sat on my steed, quiet, negligent riding, my toes standing in the stirrups, my thighs hugging his ribs. At a walk, we drew up to the porch, tethered him to a paling dismount. I smoothed my skirt and entered the dusky hall, my feet on the clean linoleum, left ghostly toes in the hall. "Where have you been?" said my mother. "Been riding," I said from the sink, and filled me a glass of water. "What's that in your pocket?" she said. "Just my jackknife. It weighed my pocket and stretched my dress a-weary." "Go tie back your hair," my mother said. "And why is your mouth all green?" "Rob Roy, he pulled some clover. As we crossed the field," I told her. The Centaur was written by May Swenson, and it overall summarizes a childhood of a little girl who has a very wild imagination about becoming a horse. And the horse in this poem is represented as a twig she finds around her house. And the whole poem shifts from imagination to reality throughout. Each yellow highlighted portion is the first question of the CRD poem analysis, and the pink highlighted is the second question. Starting off with the title, Centaur first, it means a Greek mythical creature who is half human and half horse. That represents how May Swenson, her imagination created her to start turning into a horse. She was speaking to readers with similar childhood experiences, and she was overall sharing her childhood story and showing her how she was free from all of her tensions in this imaginatory world. She was playing with a stick and pretending it was a horse, and that created the illusion of what was real and what was not. As well as in stanza 4, it shows how she isn't talking about an actual horse, but her imagination is causing it to seem that way. The horse is actually a stick that she found from outside and used her brother's pocket knife to create it. The uses of imagery creates the scene throughout the poem. The attitude is very jubilant and upbeat because she is talking about her imagination, and most child's imaginations are very wild and untamed. The twig was not an inanimate object in May Swenson's point of view. It was the horse that she was riding. She starts to speak as if she was turning into the horse, and it sort of starts to clarify gender roles in her childhood, because she does refer to the horse as it being a he. as well as her using imagery to describe a kinesthetic image of her physically riding the horse and becoming and turning into the horse. At around stanza 9, she compares the horse's head and the twig and the top of its head, as they can be a very similar image in her mind. Down towards stanza 10, she does become vivid with her imagination, and she starts to transition into that horse with comparing the horse to herself and using similes and metaphors to convey that image. Down near stanza 11, she uses onomatopoeia because the snorted resonates the snorting of a horse, which would not normally a human would do. Down at stanza 13, the stick was to show how untamed herself was as a child, and it reveals how wild and creative and carefree childhood imagination can be. Getting towards the end of the poem, it was almost as if her hair was like an instrument that was being played, and it was creating this like tangible feeling of an instrument being played. The ride allowed her to forget who she was. The riding the horse allowed her to escape from reality, and it coincides with the theme of centering around childhood fantasy. After this, around stanza 17, line 49, the poem starts to shift back into reality, where she's going back into seeing her mom and seeing how she played until dusk and didn't even realize. In stanza 20, it talks about how the pocket knife was in her dress. And this just shows gender roles in society, because the norm isn't for a girl to be carrying around a knife. She's normally just supposed to be having a dress on with very girly features. As well as at the end, she ate the clover, imagining herself as a horse. So throughout this whole play, Mae Swenson was conveying how childhood imagination can be so carefree and can allow you to escape all the reality that you might be dealing with.